You are 19, and you thought grave dirt was the worst of it. You were wrong. The worst is the walk back through the closes in the dark with the load over your shoulder and the city just beginning to wake. Edinburgh, winter, 1828, and Knox is waiting. Rewind 4 days. You came to Edinburgh for work. Not this work. Canal work, road work, any work. But the canal is finished and the roads are frozen, and your last coin went to the lodging man in Westport on Tuesday. The man who finds you is not a monster. He is tired. He smells of ale and wet wool. He looks at your hands the way a farmer looks at soil. He says, "Can you keep quiet?" You can. He says the work is at night, that it pays more than the canal ever would, that the law is complicated, and the less you know about the law, the better. What he does not tell you, the buyer's name, the buyer's address, the name of every watchman who has already been paid to look the other way. What he tells you instead, you start tonight, you carry the boards, you do not speak, you do not look. And if anyone asks, you are a porter running a night errand. In 1828 Edinburgh, that is all anyone needs to hear. The graveyard smells of stone and mildew and something older that you cannot name. Greyfriars Kirkyard. 2 in the morning. The man ahead of you lays down the boards first. Not for comfort, for footprints. A resurrection man leaves no trace worth finding. The spade is wooden, not iron. Iron rings. Wood is quiet. He does not dig the whole grave. That is the first thing you learn. He digs only at the head end, a narrow shaft, just wide enough for one man's shoulders, deep enough to reach the coffin lid. The cold goes through your boots in the first 10 minutes. The frozen top crust breaks like old bread. Below it, wet clay. Below that, wood. He cracks the coffin head with one precise movement. Then the rope goes in. Your job is to hold the other end. You hold it. The load comes up heavier than you expected, heavier than anything you have carried, and warm, still warm from the earth. He fills the grave in 4 minutes, smooths the surface, collects the boards, adjusts the flowers left by a family who will come back at dawn and see nothing wrong. Pick it up, he says, and you do. By the second week, you know the routes. Which closes are dark enough, which watchmen have been settled, which kirkyard walls have a loose stone at the base where the boards slide through. You know the sound of a wooden spade in frozen ground versus a soft clay. You know how to fall flat when a lantern swings near the wall. You know to breathe through your mouth, not your nose, when the load is a week old. The delivery point is 10 Surgeons Square. You do not knock at the front. You go to the back. You say nothing. A man called Patterson opens the door. He does not ask where it came from. He does not write your name down. He looks at the load. He nods. He pays. £7 and 10 shillings for a fresh one. 8 if the timing is right. 10 once in November for a reason no one explained. What Patterson does not tell you is what happens next. Through the walls above the cellar, 500 students are waiting. Dr. Robert Knox, the most famous anatomy lecturer in Scotland, has promised them a human body completely dissected. He has been keeping that promise all season. You are how he keeps it. You go home before the city wakes. You sleep in a room that smells of sour wool and coal soot. You eat porridge when there is porridge. You wait for dark. At night, when the moon is not full, you go back out. The diary of one resurrection man from this era records 124 working nights across a single year. You are becoming that number. The night it changes, the load is different. You know it before Patterson opens the door. Something in the weight, something in the smell. This one did not come through the earth. You do not say this. Patterson opens the door. Patterson takes the load. And tonight, Knox himself is in the room. He looks at it, longer than usual, long enough to see there is no grave dirt in the hair, long enough to see there is no coffin splinter on the coat, long enough to know. And then he says nothing. He nods to Patterson. Coins change hands. The transaction continues. You stand in the corridor and understand something that no one in this building will ever speak aloud. Silence from a man like Knox is not ignorance. It is permission, dressed as professionalism. The graveyard was never the heart of it. The heart of it is this corridor, where knowledge, money, and silence all recognize each other and choose not to speak. In November, the city goes wrong. Too many lanterns, too many boots, too much whispering that stops when you pass. Burke and Hare are undone by a lodger, a woman named Anne Gray. She looks under the bed. That is all. She looks under the bed and the whole system falls. The city does not distinguish carefully between those who ended people and those who merely carried them. Edinburgh is not in the mood for careful distinctions. You are on the street near Westport when a constable turns and sees the clay still drying on your cuffs. He calls for you to stand. You do not run. Running is what guilt looks like. So is standing still. So is speaking. So is silence. Every truthful sentence you have sounds like a confession. Yes, you were out late. Yes, you know the kirkyards. Yes, you have been to Surgeon's Square. Yes, you have been paid in cash before dawn. The mob at Knox's house smashes windows that same week. The newspapers call it a new species of crime. The lawyers call it unprecedented. Nobody calls it what it was, a market that the city built and hired hungry boys to run. Burke hangs in January. His body goes to anatomy. His skeleton is still in Edinburgh today. Hare walks free, vanishes into rumor. The city wants him tried. The law says no. Knox is never convicted, never cleared. He teaches in other cities, smaller rooms, fewer students. In 1832, Parliament passes the Anatomy Act. Legal anatomy schools may now use the unclaimed bodies of those who died in poverty. The resurrection men are no longer needed. The trade simply shifts from the graveyard to the workhouse, from the dark to the paperwork. As for you, there is no record. There never was. The city only keeps records of the men it wants to remember. This is Edinburgh, 1828. And somewhere, tonight, in a room above Surgeons' Square, a lecture is beginning. If you survived this, tell me below, would you have yet stayed silent in that corridor, or would you have walked away? This is Dread POV.